I moved into a quiet neighborhood and got accused of stealing within a week. She is standing on my porch with a clipboard and a printed notice, yelling that I stole a locked cash box from the neighborhood charity table, and if I do not produce it in the next 10 minutes, she is calling the police and suspending my gate access so I cannot leave the complex. I am holding my phone, staring at her, trying to process how fast this escalated. My name is on a post in the neighborhood group, accused of package theft, and now the HOA treasurer is at my door demanding I confess to a crime I did not commit. Her name is Colleen Harper. She is the board treasurer for the Lakeview Heights Homeowners Association here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and she has decided I am a thief. The charity table was set up 2 days ago outside the clubhouse for a local shelter drive, and someone took the cash box overnight. This morning a neighbor posted in the group chat that packages have been going missing for weeks, and Colleen replied in the comments pointing directly at me, saying she has been documenting everything and that I was seen near the table multiple times. I work as a sales rep, I drive all day, I am in and out of the neighborhood constantly, so yes, I was near the table. So was everyone else who lives here. I try to explain this. Colleen cuts me off. She says, I am documenting everything, and I have 3 separate complaints on file. She waves the clipboard. I can see tabs sticking out, color-coded. Each one a different complaint form. She says the cash box had $200 in it, all documented, all donated by residents, and now it is gone. She says the camera near the clubhouse was tampered with, and the footage is missing. She looks right at me and says, you tampered with that camera, and I am going to make sure the police know that when they arrive. I say I did not touch the camera, I did not take anything. Colleen says, then explain why you were walking past the table at 9:45 on Tuesday night. I say, I was coming home from a client meeting. I live here. She says, go ahead and call whoever you want, I have a committee for that. She taps the clipboard. She says, I offered you a fair deal 2 weeks ago. You could have signed the parking compact and avoided all of this. Now you are on my list. I have no idea what she is talking about. 2 weeks ago, she sent an email to a dozen residents saying we needed to sign a new parking agreement because the HOA was updating vendor protocols. I ignored it because I do not have assigned parking and the email did not apply to me. Now she is acting like I rejected some kind of settlement offer. She says, you had your chance. Now we do this the hard way. She pulls a printed notice from the clipboard and hands it to me. It says my gate access is under review due to multiple violations and that I need to submit a written response within 48 hours or my code will be suspended pending a board review. The notice is dated today. I say, what violations? Colleen says, tampering with association property, failure to comply with vendor coordination requirements, and suspected theft of community funds. She says, you are not allowed to leave the property until this is resolved. If you try to use the gate, your code will be deactivated and you will be documented as trespassing. I say, you cannot lock me in. Colleen says, I am not locking you in. I am enforcing the covenants. She turns and walks off my porch. I watch her get into her car, a white sedan with an HOA parking placard on the dash, and drive away. I stand there holding the notice, my heart pounding, trying to figure out what just happened. I go inside and call my friend Marcus. He is a paralegal, he has dealt with HOA disputes before, and he is the only person I know who will not think I am overreacting. I put him on speaker and read him the notice. Marcus says, they cannot suspend your gate access without a hearing. Check your CC and Rs. I pull up the governing documents on my laptop. The covenants say the board can suspend amenities for non-payment or safety violations, but they have to give 14 days notice and an opportunity to respond. This notice gives me 48 hours. Marcus says that is not enough time. Push back. Document everything. Do not admit anything. I say, she accused me of tampering with a camera. Marcus says, did you? I say, no. Marcus says, then make her prove it. He tells me to check if there is any video from my own doorbell camera that shows when I came home that night. I pull up the app. My doorbell camera saves clips for 30 days. I scroll back to Tuesday night. There is a clip at 9:43 showing me walking up to my door with my work bag. I am alone. I go straight inside. I do not go near the clubhouse. I save the clip. Marcus says, good. Now find out who else had access to the clubhouse. If the cash box was locked, someone needed a key. I say, Colleen has a key. She is the treasurer. Marcus says, then she is the first suspect. He tells me to go to the management office tomorrow and request the access log for the clubhouse. I say, what if they refuse? Marcus says, then you file a records request in writing and CC the whole board. Make them refuse in writing. I thank him and hang up. I sit at my kitchen table staring at the notice. The 48-hour deadline is suffocating. I need to respond, but I do not know what to say. If I write a denial, Colleen will just escalate. If I try to negotiate, she will use it against me. I decide to go to the management office first thing in the morning and get the access log before I do anything else. That night I barely sleep. I keep thinking about the timeline. The cash box disappeared Tuesday night. Colleen showed up at my door today, Thursday, which means she waited 2 full days to confront me. Why wait? If she really thought I took it, why not call the police immediately? Unless she needed time to set up the frame. The next morning I drive to the management office. It is in a strip mall 10 minutes from the neighborhood. A small office with 2 desks and a receptionist behind a plexiglass divider. I walk in and say I need a copy of the clubhouse access log for the last 2 weeks. The receptionist, a younger woman with glasses, says, I can request that, but it will take a few days. I say, I need it today. She says, I will have to ask the manager. She gets up and goes into the back office. I hear low voices. A minute later, a man in his 50s, balding, wearing a polo with the management company logo, comes out. He says, what is this about? I explain the situation. I say, Colleen Harper accused me of stealing a cash box and tampering with a camera, and I need the access log to prove I did not have access. The manager says, Miss Harper is the treasurer. If she filed a complaint, we have to follow protocol. I say, what protocol? He says, we cannot release logs without board approval. I pull out my phone and open the governing documents. I say, Section 12.3 says any owner can request access records with 72 hours notice. The manager frowns. He says, I will have to check with Miss Harper. I say, she is the one accusing me. You cannot ask her for permission to investigate her. He says, she is the board treasurer. She is the only authorized contact for financial records. I feel my chest tighten. Colleen has positioned herself as the gatekeeper. I say, then I am filing a formal records request right now. I want it in writing that you are refusing to provide the log without her approval. The manager hesitates. The receptionist is watching. He says, fine. I will pull the log. But you cannot take it with you. You can review it here. He goes into the back and comes out with a printed sheet. He lays it on the counter. I lean in and read. The log shows every time someone used a key or code to open the clubhouse. Tuesday night, 9:37, Colleen Harper, key entry. Tuesday night, 10:15, Colleen Harper, key exit. I pull out my phone and take a photo of the log. The manager says, you cannot do that. I say, It is a public record. He does not stop me. I look at him and say, Colleen was in the clubhouse alone for 38 minutes the night the cash box disappeared. The manager says, that does not prove anything. I say, it proves she had access and opportunity. He does not respond. I ask if there is any security footage from the clubhouse. He says the camera was offline. I say, who reported it offline? He says, Miss Harper. I walk out of the office holding my phone, the photo of the log saved. I call Marcus and tell him what I found. He says, that is your first clue. She had access, she was alone in the clubhouse, and she is the one who reported the camera malfunction. Now you need to find out if anyone else saw her. I say, how? Marcus says, go back to the neighborhood group and see who else posted about missing packages. Someone might have video. I pull up the neighborhood group on my phone. The original post about missing packages is from a woman named Sandra. She says her package was taken from her porch Monday afternoon, and she has doorbell footage of someone in a black puffer vest and a baseball cap walking up, grabbing the box, and leaving. She did not see the face clearly, but she posted a still image from the video. I zoom in. The person is wearing a black puffer vest and a black baseball cap. Colleen was wearing a black puffer vest and a black baseball cap when she came to my door. I screenshot the post and send it to Marcus. He calls me immediately. He says that is not enough to prove it is her, but it is enough to create reasonable doubt. You need to get that footage from Sandra and compare it to any other footage you have of Colleen. I message Sandra through the group. I say, I am dealing with a similar issue, and I am trying to figure out who is taking packages. Can you send me the full video? She replies within 5 minutes. She says, sure. Here is the link. She sends a cloud storage link. I download the video. I watch it 3 times. The person walks up to Sandra's porch, looks around, grabs the package, and walks back toward the street. The gait is familiar. The way she holds her shoulders. I pull up my doorbell footage from yesterday when Colleen came to my door. I compare the two. The walk is identical. The posture is identical. It is her. I call Marcus again. He says, you need to take this to the police. I say, what if they do not believe me? Marcus says, then you take it to the board. But do not wait. The longer you wait, the more time she has to cover her tracks. I say, she already threatened to suspend my gate access. If I push back now, she is going to escalate. Marcus says, let her. You have evidence. She does not. I hang up and sit in my car in the management office parking lot, trying to decide what to do next. My phone buzzes. It is a text from an unknown number. The message says, you need to return what you took or this gets worse. No signature. I screenshot it and forward it to Marcus. He says, do not respond. That is harassment. Save it. I drive back to the neighborhood. When I pull up to the gate, I punch in my code. The gate does not open. I try again, nothing. I call the management office. The receptionist says, your access has been temporarily suspended pending review. I say, review of what? She says I do not have details. You will need to speak with Miss Harper. I am trapped. I cannot get into my own neighborhood. I park on the street outside the gate and walk in through the pedestrian entrance. It is a 1/4 mile to my townhouse. I am carrying my work bag, my manila folder bulging with papers, and I am furious. I pass the clubhouse on the way. There is a handwritten sign taped to the door. It says, due to recent theft and vandalism, the clubhouse is closed until further notice. The sign is not official HOA letterhead. It looks like Colleen printed it at home. I take a photo of the sign. I keep walking. When I get to my townhouse, there is another notice taped to my door. This one says I am required to attend a board meeting next Tuesday to address the allegations. And if I do not attend, the board will proceed with disciplinary action in my absence. The meeting is 6 days away. The notice says I can bring one witness but no recording devices. I tear the notice off the door and go inside. I call Marcus. I say, she suspended my gate access and now she is forcing me into a board meeting. Marcus says, do not go to the meeting. I say, if I do not go, they will proceed without me. Marcus says, let them. You are going to file a complaint with the state HOA ombudsman and request an investigation. In the meantime, you document every single thing she does. I say, what about my gate access? Marcus says, that is illegal retaliation. You file a complaint with management in writing, you CC the entire board, and you demand reinstatement within 24 hours. If they refuse, you contact an attorney. I say, I cannot afford an attorney. Marcus says, then you represent yourself. But you do not let her bully you into that meeting. She is trying to control the narrative. You control the evidence. I spend the next 2 hours drafting an email to the management company and the HOA board. I attach the access log photo, the doorbell footage, Sandra's package theft video, and the screenshot of the harassment text. I write that Colleen Harper had exclusive access to the clubhouse the night the cash box disappeared, that she matches the description of the person stealing packages, and that she has retaliated against me by suspending my gate access without due process. I CC all 5 board members and the management company. I hit send. Within 20 minutes, my phone rings. It is the HOA president, a man named Greg. He says, I just got your email. This is a serious accusation. I say it is a serious situation. Greg says, Colleen is a dedicated board member. She has been treasurer for 4 years. I say, then ask her why she was in the clubhouse alone for 38 minutes the night the cash box disappeared. Greg is quiet for a moment. He says, I will look into it. I say, I also want my gate access reinstated immediately. Greg says, I will talk to management. He hangs up. I sit at my kitchen table, staring at my phone, waiting for something to happen. An hour later, my gate code works again. I test it from my phone using the app. The gate opens. I feel a tiny bit of relief, but I know this is not over. Colleen is not going to back down just because I sent an email. That night, I get a call from Sandra, the woman who posted about the stolen package. She says, I saw your email to the board. I just want you to know I believe you. I have been tracking this for weeks, and I think Colleen has been stealing from multiple people. She says she has footage of the same person in the black vest and Cap taking another package from a neighbor 2 doors down. She says, I am going to send you everything I have. Maybe we can figure this out together. Sandra sends me 3 more videos. Each one shows the same person in the black vest and Cap taking packages from different porches. The timestamps span 3 weeks. In one video, the person walks right past a car, and I can see a white sedan in the background with an HOA placard on the dash. It is Colleen's car. I forward everything to Marcus. He says this is enough, you need to go to the police. I say, what if Colleen convinces them I am the one who stole the cash box? Marcus says, then you show them this evidence. You are not the suspect anymore. She is. The next morning, I drive to the police substation. I bring my laptop, my phone, and the manila folder with all the printed logs and screenshots. I ask to file a report. The officer at the desk, a woman in her 30s, asks what this is about. I say, I need to report theft and fraud by an HOA board member. She takes me to a small interview room and listens while I explain everything. I show her the access log, the doorbell footage, Sandra's videos, and the harassment text. I show her the photo of Colleen's car in the background of one of the package theft videos. The officer takes notes. She says, "This is a civil HOA matter. We do not usually get involved unless there is evidence of a crime." I say, "She stole a cash box with $200. She has been stealing packages for weeks. That is theft." The officer says, "Do you have proof she took the cash box?" I say, "She had access, she was alone in the clubhouse, and she is the one who reported the camera malfunction." The officer says, "That is circumstantial." I feel my frustration rising. I say, "What do I need to prove it?" The officer says, "A witness, or direct video evidence or a confession." I say, "She is not going to confess." The officer says, "Then you need to gather more evidence." She says I can file a report for the harassment text, and she will assign a case number, but she cannot investigate the theft without more proof. She writes up the incident report. She hands me a copy with a case number on it. She says, "Keep documenting. If she contacts you again, call us." I leave the substation feeling defeated. I have evidence, I have witnesses, I have a timeline, and it is still not enough. I drive back to the neighborhood. When I pull into my driveway, there is a woman standing near my mailbox. She is wearing a management company polo. She says, "Are you the owner of this unit?" I say, "Yes." She hands me a packet of papers. She says, "This is a notice of non-compliance and a demand for payment. You owe $600 in fines for violating parking and access protocols." I say, "What fines?" She says, "It is all in the packet." She walks away before I can ask anything else. I rip open the packet. There are 3 separate fine notices, each dated today, each signed by Colleen Harper. One is for unauthorized use of guest parking, which I have never used. One is for failure to register a vehicle, which I registered 2 years ago. One is for tampering with association property, which I did not do. Each fine is $200. If you are enjoying this story and want to see how it ends, please hit that like button and subscribe for more wild HOA drama. I take the packet inside and call Marcus. I say she is fining me $600 for violations I did not commit. Marcus says do not pay. Dispute every single one in writing. She is retaliating because you went to the police. I say, what if she puts a lien on my property? Marcus says she cannot do that without a hearing. This is harassment. You need to escalate. I draft another email to the board. I attach the fine notices, and I write that Colleen Harper is abusing her position to retaliate against me for reporting her theft. I CC the management company, the board, and the state HOA ombudsman. I hit send. Within an hour, Greg, the HOA president, calls me again. He says, "You need to stop accusing Colleen. She is filing a defamation claim against you." I say I have not defamed anyone. I reported a crime. Greg says, "You sent an email to the entire board calling her a thief. That is defamation." I say it is only defamation if it is false. Greg hangs up. That afternoon, I get another text from the unknown number. It says, "Last chance. Return the money and this goes away." I screenshot it and forward it to Marcus and to the police officer who took my report. I reply to the text and say, "I did not take any money. Stop harassing me." The number does not respond. The next morning, I am getting ready for work when I hear a knock at my door. I open it. It is Colleen. She is holding a rolling file cart, the kind with 2 plastic bins stacked on a metal frame. She says, "I am here to conduct an inspection." I say, An inspection of what? She says, the covenants allow the board to inspect any unit for compliance. I have the authority to enter. I say, no, you do not. She tries to push the cart past me. I block the door. She says, if you refuse to comply, I will have management issue a trespass order and you will be evicted. I pull out my phone and start recording. I say, you are not entering my home. Colleen looks at the phone and says, recording me is illegal. I am documenting everything. She pulls out her own phone and holds it up, recording me. We stand there, both of us filming each other, neither of us moving. Finally, she says, fine. I will add refusal to cooperate to your file. She turns and drags the file cart down my walkway, the wheels squeaking on the concrete. I close the door and call Marcus. I say, she just tried to force her way into my townhouse. Marcus says that is trespassing. File a police report. I call the police non-emergency line. I explain what happened. The dispatcher says an officer will come by to take a statement. 2 hours later, a deputy shows up. He listens to my story. He watches the video I took. He says, she did not actually enter, so it is not trespassing. It is more of a civil dispute. He writes up an incident report and gives me the case number. He says, if she tries again, call us immediately. That night, Sandra calls me. She says, I just found out Colleen has been telling people at the clubhouse that you are under investigation for embezzlement. She is saying you stole money from the HOA account. I say, that is insane. I do not have access to the HOA account. Sandra says, I know. But people are believing her. She is very convincing. I feel the walls closing in. Colleen is not just framing me for the cash box theft. She is trying to destroy my reputation. I call Marcus. I say, she is spreading lies about me. Marcus says, that is defamation. You can sue. I say, I do not have money for a lawsuit. Marcus says, then you go public. You post everything in the neighborhood group. You let people see the evidence. I say, what if she sues me? Marcus says, let her. Truth is a defense. I spend the next hour writing a post for the neighborhood group. I keep it factual. I write that I have been falsely accused of theft by the HOA treasurer, that I have evidence she was alone in the clubhouse the night the cash box disappeared, that she matches the description of the person stealing packages, and that she has retaliated against me by suspending my gate access and issuing fraudulent fines. I attach the access log, the doorbell footage, Sandra's videos, and the harassment texts. I hit post. Within minutes, the comments start rolling in. Some people are supportive. Some people say I am lying. One person says, this is not appropriate for the group. Another person says, if Colleen did this, she needs to be removed from the board. Sandra comments and says, I can confirm the footage is real. I have been tracking this for weeks. Another neighbor says, I have also had packages stolen. I am going to check my doorbell camera. Colleen comments on the post. She says, this is defamation and I am pursuing legal action. I have documented everything and I have proof this person is lying. She does not attach any proof. The comment thread explodes. People are arguing. The group admin, a retired guy named Frank, posts a message saying, everyone calm down. This is getting out of hand. He locks the thread. The next morning, I get an email from Greg, the HOA president. He says the board has scheduled an emergency meeting for tonight to address the situation, and my attendance is required. The meeting is at 7 at the clubhouse. I forward the email to Marcus. He says, do not go alone. Bring a witness. I ask Sandra if she will come with me. She says, absolutely. At 6:45, Sandra and I walk to the clubhouse. There are already a dozen people inside, sitting in folding chairs. The 5 board members are sitting at a folding table at the front. Colleen is at the far end, her clipboard in front of her face set in a tight smile. Greg is in the middle. He says, "Thank you all for coming. This is an informal hearing to address allegations made by one of our residents." He looks at me. He says, "You have 5 minutes to present your case." I walk to the front and set my manila folder on the table. I pull out the access log and lay it in front of the board. I say, "This log shows that Colleen Harper was in the clubhouse alone for 38 minutes the night the cash box disappeared." I pull out the doorbell footage stills and lay them next to the log. I say, "This footage shows Colleen at my door wearing the same clothing described by multiple neighbors who have had packages stolen." I pull out Sandra's videos and lay them on the table. I say, "These videos show the same person stealing packages over a 3-week period." In one video, Colleen's car is visible in the background. Colleen stands up. She says, "This is ridiculous. I was in the clubhouse, doing my job. I am the treasurer. I have access because I am supposed to have access." She says, "And those videos do not prove anything. You cannot even see a face." Greg says, "Colleen, sit down. Let him finish." I pull out the harassment texts and lay them on the table. I say, "Someone has been texting me anonymously, threatening me and demanding I return money I did not take. I filed a police report. I have a case number. I pull out the fine notices. I say, Colleen issued $600 in fines against me for violations I did not commit. This is retaliation." I pull out the photo of the sign Colleen taped to the clubhouse door. I say, "She closed the clubhouse without board approval and blamed it on vandalism. There was no vandalism. She is covering her tracks." Colleen is on her feet again. She says, "I am documenting everything, and I am not going to sit here and be accused by a thief." She points at me. She says, "You stole that money and you are trying to frame me." Greg says, "Colleen, enough. Sit down." Colleen does not sit. She says, "Go ahead and call whoever you want. I have a committee for that." Sandra stands up from the audience. She says, "I have video of the same person stealing my package. I am happy to show it to the board." Greg says, "That is not necessary right now." Sandra sits back down. Colleen says, "This is a setup. You are all conspiring against me." Greg says, "Colleen, you need to leave." Colleen says, "I am not leaving. I am a board member." Greg says, "You are suspended pending an investigation." Colleen slams her clipboard on the table. She says, "You cannot suspend me. I am the treasurer." Greg says, "We just did. You need to leave now." Colleen looks around the room. Her face is red. She grabs the rolling file cart she brought and drags it toward the door. One of the wheels catches on a chair leg and papers spill out of the top bin. I see a stack of identical complaint forms, all with printed names, all unsigned. I see a key ring with at least a dozen keys. I see a printed photo of a plastic tote in a restricted storage closet. Greg walks over and picks up the photo. He says, "What is this?" Colleen tries to grab it. Greg holds it out of reach. He says, "This is the storage closet." "Why do you have a photo of a tote in the storage closet?" Colleen says, "That is HOA property." Greg says, "Open the tote." Colleen says, "I do not have the key." Greg looks at the key ring on the floor. He picks it up. He counts the keys. He says, "You have 12 keys here." One of them opens that closet. The room goes silent. Everyone is staring at Colleen. Greg says, "We are going to the storage closet right now." Colleen says, "You cannot do this." Greg says, "Yes, I can." He walks out of the clubhouse holding the key ring and the photo. Half the room follows him, including me and Sandra. Colleen stays behind, gripping her clipboard. The storage closet is around the corner, behind the clubhouse. Greg tries 3 keys before one works. He opens the door. Inside is a metal shelf unit with labeled bins. He finds the tote from the photo. It is a clear plastic bin with a locking lid. He tries another key. The lid pops open. Inside are at least 24 packages, still sealed, with mailing labels addressed to different residents. There is also a small lockbox. Greg opens it. Inside are stacks of cash and a handwritten ledger with dates and amounts. Sandra gasps. She says, "That is my package." She pulls out a box with her name on it. Another neighbor steps forward and says, "That is mine." Greg pulls out his phone and calls the police. He says, "We need an officer at the Lakeview Heights clubhouse immediately. We have evidence of theft." 20 minutes later, a deputy arrives. Greg shows him the tote, the packages, the cash box, and the ledger. The deputy takes photos. He asks who has access to the storage closet. Greg says, "Only board members." And Colleen Harper is the one who had the key ring. The deputy asks where Colleen is. Greg says, "She left." The deputy says he is going to issue a report and forward it to investigations. He says residents who had packages stolen can file individual reports and reference this case number. He writes the incident number on a card and hands it to Greg. Greg hands the card to me. He says, "I am sorry. We should have listened to you sooner." I say, "What happens now?" Greg says, "We are removing Colleen from the board tonight. We are going to issue a formal retraction of all the complaints she filed against you. We are going to refund your fines and reinstate your access with no conditions. And we are going to implement a written procedure for video evidence so this does not happen again." The deputy walks over to me. He says, "You did good work here. Most people would have given up." I say, "I had help." I look at Sandra. She smiles. The next morning, I get an email from the management company. It says Colleen Harper has been removed from her position as treasurer and is no longer authorized to act on behalf of the HOA. It says all complaints filed against me have been withdrawn and all fines have been refunded. It says the board is conducting a full audit of the HOA financials and will report findings to all residents within 30 days. I forward the email to Marcus. He says, "You won." I say, "It does not feel like winning. I am exhausted." Marcus says, "That is normal. But you did the right thing. You stood up. You did not let her bully you. And now she is going to face consequences." 2 days later, Sandra calls me. She says, Colleen just returned 6 packages to the clubhouse. She left them on the porch with a note saying she found them in her car. She is trying to act like it was a mistake. Sandra says the board is not buying it. They are pressing charges. A week later, I get a call from the deputy who took the report. He says, "We are moving forward with theft charges against Colleen Harper. We found the ledger, and it shows she has been skimming cash from HOA vendor payments for at least 6 months. The total is over $4,000. He says, "You are going to be called as a witness." I say, "I am ready." The HOA holds a special meeting to address the audit findings. I do not attend, but Sandra texts me updates. She says the audit revealed a pattern of missing funds, all tied to Colleen. She says Colleen tried to blame the management company, but a portal export showed all the complaint forms were uploaded from one device, her laptop. She says the board voted unanimously to ban Colleen from all HOA property and to pursue restitution. I never see Colleen again. A few weeks later, I get a letter from the HOA attorney. It says Colleen has agreed to repay the stolen funds and resign from the board in exchange for the board not pursuing a civil lawsuit. The letter says the criminal charges are still pending. It says I am entitled to file a separate civil claim for harassment and defamation if I choose. I decide not to. I just want it to be over. The neighborhood slowly returns to normal. Packages stop disappearing. The clubhouse reopens. The gate works. People stop whispering when I walk by. Sandra and I become friends. She says, "You saved this neighborhood." I say, "You helped me prove it." She says, "We make a good team." One afternoon, I am checking my mail when Frank, the group admin, walks over. He says, "I owe you an apology. I locked that thread because I thought you were stirring up drama. I did not realize how serious it was." I say, "It is fine." Frank says, "No, it is not. I should have listened." He says the board is looking for a new treasurer and they want someone who will actually follow the rules. He says, "You should apply." I laugh. I say, "I do not think so." Frank says, "Think about it. We need people who will stand up." I think about it. I do not apply. But I do start going to board meetings. I sit in the back and I listen. I watch the new treasurer, a retired accountant named Linda, present clean financials every month. I watch Greg enforce the rules evenly. I watch the board approve new policies, including a requirement that all complaints include video or photographic evidence, and that all disciplinary actions require a full hearing with the right to bring witnesses. The HOA is not perfect, but it is better, and I am not afraid anymore. I know how to fight back. I know how to document. I know how to win. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.